I'm 26 years old, and for the last year and a half, I've worked the overnight shift at a 24-hour gas station just off Highway 64 in rural North Carolina. The job isn't glamorous, but it pays better than most things around here, and I kind of like the solitude. It's just me, the hum of fluorescent lights, and the occasional traveler pulling in for coffee or fuel. The gas station sits at the edge of town. Beyond us, it's just dark, wooded stretches and the occasional truck stop. During the day, it's busy, but after 11 p.m., things get quiet, like dead quiet. On a good night, I see maybe a dozen customers between midnight and 6 a.m. Most just want smokes, gas, or caffeine. My shift usually starts at 10:30 p.m. I restock the shelves, mop the floor, take inventory, and sit behind bulletproof glass browsing YouTube on my phone. I've gotten used to the stillness. You almost forget the rest of the world exists out there. But one night last October 18th to be exact, something happened that shook me in a way I still haven't fully processed. It was around 2:45 a.m. The night had been slow. Just a couple of regulars and one semi-truck guy who barely said 2 words. I was behind the counter scrolling Reddit when I noticed a car pulling up to pump 4. It was an old Ford Taurus, dark blue, paint peeling off the sides, and only one headlight working. The engine idled, but nobody got out. I waited a moment, assuming they were fumbling for their wallet or phone. Still, nothing. Then the engine cut off, and the driver door opened slowly. A tall man stepped out, thin, lanky, maybe late 40s. He was wearing a puffy jacket even though the weather was still mild, and he had on a beanie pulled low over his forehead. He didn't head for the pump. Instead, he just stood there, staring directly at the store. No movement, no blink, just watching. I tapped the camera monitor to get a better angle. His face was mostly in shadow, but from what I could see, something about him just felt off. His posture was stiff. His arms hung straight down like a mannequin. After maybe 20 seconds, he started walking toward the store. I instinctively locked the door. Now, we're not in a high-crime area, but protocol says we can lock up late at night if something seems suspicious. And this guy, he definitely qualified. He approached slowly, then stopped right in front of the glass, only inches away from me. We were face to face, separated only by the thick pane. Up close, I could see more clearly. His eyes were wide, pupils huge. His lips were cracked, and he had deep bags under his eyes. He looked strung out. But it wasn't just drugs. It was like something else was going on behind those eyes, like he was sizing me up for something. I flicked on the intercom. "Store's closed right now, sir. Pumps are self-service." He didn't respond, just kept staring. Then, slowly, he raised his hand and placed it on the glass. His palm was dirty, grimy actually, and his nails were yellowed. He started tapping, just one finger. Tap, tap, tap. I turned off the intercom and moved to grab the phone just in case. That's when he spoke, loud enough that I could hear him even through the glass. "You alone in there?" My throat went dry. I didn't answer. He smiled, a slow, deliberate smile that didn't reach his eyes. Then he turned and walked back to his car. But instead of leaving, he climbed into the back seat. Not the driver's seat, the back. And the car just sat there. No lights, no engine. That's when I called my manager, Jason. I told him what was happening, and he said to lock the doors, stay behind the counter, and if the guy tried to get inside, to call the sheriff. I hung up and peeked through the side window. I couldn't see into the car anymore. The windows were tinted, and the angle made it look like the whole vehicle was swallowed in shadow. 15 minutes passed, then 30. At some point, I convinced myself he'd fallen asleep, or maybe left without me noticing. I went back to the counter and tried to shake the whole thing off. But just before 4 a.m., I heard something that made my stomach drop. A soft knock. From the back door. Now, the back door leads to the dumpster area, and nobody ever uses it, especially not customers. I froze. It was just one knock. Then silence. I checked the cameras. Nothing on the rear cam. But I swear, I heard it. I radioed Jason again, more nervous this time. He said he was heading over, would be there in 15 minutes. I stayed put. Didn't move. Barely breathed. About 5 minutes later, I heard the knock again. This time, closer. Not the back door. It was now coming from the storage room door, inside the building. That door is locked at all times. It leads to a narrow hallway connecting the front of the store to the back exit and a storage closet. No one should be back there unless they have a key. And I hadn't heard the alarm beep from the rear door opening. I reached under the counter and hit the silent alarm button. Then I grabbed the small aluminum bat we keep for emergencies and tiptoed toward the hallway. Every hair on my neck was standing up. I peeked around the corner, and the storage room door was cracked open. Not wide, just a sliver. I stood there for a few seconds, heart pounding in my ears, then called out, "Hey, who's back there?" No answer. I took a slow step forward and nudged the door with the bat. Nothing inside, just a few crates of snacks and cleaning supplies. But scratched into the wall in long, messy letters was one word: alone. Right then, headlights cut across the front window. Jason had arrived. I ran out to meet him, breathless, panicked. We checked the entire store, top to bottom. Nobody there. We even called the sheriff to make a report. But when they checked the cameras, the footage glitched. I'm serious. There was a 5-minute gap from just before I heard the back door knock. The guy in the Taurus? Gone. Never came back. And the next day, when we reviewed older footage, we found something else. That same Taurus had pulled into the lot twice earlier that week. Once around 3:17 a.m. and again just before 5. Both times it parked for exactly 13 minutes and then left without anyone getting out. I've since transferred to the day shift, and I still don't know what would have happened if I'd opened that back door, or if I'd stayed a little longer behind the counter. Whatever that man wanted, it wasn't gas. I used to work third shift security at a distribution warehouse just outside Omaha, Nebraska. It was a massive facility, close to 400,000 square feet. Picture tall shelves stacked 20 feet high, echoey concrete floors, and long aisles that seem to stretch forever when the place is empty. My job was mostly quiet. I'd walk the perimeter every hour, check the office doors, scan my little RFID badge at security checkpoints, and fill out logs that no one probably ever read. It wasn't glamorous, but I liked the peace. I was 30 at the time, recently divorced, and this job gave me something simple to focus on while I figured my life out. Most of the crew worked daytime. At night, it was just me, a few dock guys until midnight, and then complete silence. I'd bring snacks, a thermos of coffee, and my headphones. Once the dock crew clocked out, the only noise was the distant hum of the refrigeration units and the occasional creak of settling shelves. Nothing unusual ever happened, until one night in February. It was a Thursday. I remember because I had swapped a Friday shift for it, so I could take my kid to a birthday party that weekend. The weather was bitter cold, wind chills below zero, and ice was covering everything. I got to the warehouse at 10 p.m., relieved the evening guard, and started my usual routine. The first few hours were uneventful. Around 2 a.m., I started my third walkthrough. I took my usual route, past the office suites, around the receiving bays, then into the dry goods section where the shelves towered overhead like a maze. I'd walked that exact path hundreds of times. But that night, something felt different. It's hard to explain. The air felt heavier, like I was being watched. At first, I told myself I was just tired. I took a sip of cold coffee and turned down an aisle. That's when I saw it. About 20 feet ahead, In the middle of the aisle, a tall shadow moved. Not like a flicker or a trick of light. This was movement. A human shape. I froze. My flashlight beams swept forward, but the aisle was empty. I walked forward slowly, checking between the rows. Nothing. I radioed dispatch just in case. Standard procedure. I said, "This is Unit 47 at Ridgewell Warehouse. I think I saw someone inside the dry goods section. Gonna do a full sweep." They acknowledged. Told me to be cautious and call back if anything escalated. I continued forward, scanning each row carefully. Then I heard it. A soft metallic clink, like something small had fallen. It came from one of the side aisles. I turned quickly, heart starting to race, and rounded the corner. There was a box of plastic wrap rolls on the floor. I crouched down, checked around, and found nothing. No footprints, no sign of anyone. I thought maybe one of the dock workers had left it poorly stacked earlier in the night. I was just about to stand up when I saw it. Scrawled into the dust on the bottom shelf, written in long, shaky letters, was a word: leave. Now that area rarely gets cleaned. Dust settles. That word hadn't been there earlier. I was sure of it. I stood up fast and did a full loop around that section. No signs of forced entry. Every bay door was still locked from the inside. Every exit alarm panel still showed green. I tried to shrug it off. Maybe it was just someone messing with me earlier in the shift, but I couldn't let it go. I returned to the office area, pulled up the security camera feeds, and rewound the footage from the last hour. What I saw made my skin crawl. At 1:57 a.m., the overhead camera above aisle D4 showed me walking down the main aisle. But just after I passed, another figure appeared on screen. No uniform, no high-vis vest. Just a tall shape, long coat, dark pants, stepping out from between the shelves. The footage was grainy, and the camera glitched slightly, but you could see it. He turned his head toward the camera, then ducked out of view. No one else was supposed to be in the building. No other check-ins. No back doors opened. And yet, there he was. I called dispatch again. They sent out 2 officers to sweep the building with me. We searched every aisle, office, and utility room. Nothing. No signs of entry. No heat signatures. Nothing missing. But something had been there. The officers told me to stay alert and call again if anything changed. They didn't seem too concerned, but I could tell one of them was spooked by the footage. I spent the rest of the shift glued to the monitors, every sound making me flinch. And just when I thought it was over, at 5:21 a.m., with an hour left on my shift, I heard the front lobby bell ring. Now, that bell only goes off when the main door opens. I looked up, expecting to see someone on camera, maybe an early vendor. But the screen was empty. The door had opened. But nobody was there. I ran to the front entrance. The motion sensor lights were on, casting pale beams over the empty reception area. The door was closed. Locked. I even checked the alarm lock, nothing. But taped to the glass from the outside was a single sheet of paper. Just one word written in black marker. Stay. That was the last overnight shift I ever worked. I don't know what was in that warehouse with me, or how it got in. But I'll never forget the feeling that something wanted me out, and then changed its mind. My name's Marcus. I'm 41 now, but this happened about 5 years ago when I was picking up night janitor gigs around the St. Louis area. I used to work with a private cleaning company that handled commercial accounts, mostly office buildings, banks, schools. It was solid pay and flexible hours, which was perfect because I was helping care for my sick mom back then. Most nights I worked alone, and honestly, I preferred it. No coworkers, no distractions, just me, a playlist in my headphones, and the slow rhythm of wiping down desks and mopping floors. One of our regular sites was a small private medical building. 3 floors, mostly doctors' offices, a dental clinic, and a diagnostic lab in the basement. The building was pretty new, all motion-activated lights and security panels. My shift ran from 9 p.m. to 3 a.m., Monday through Friday. Everything was normal for the first few months, boring even. But one Wednesday night in late March, things changed. I clocked in a few minutes after 9, as usual. The night was rainy, and the parking lot was empty except for my van and a lone sedan parked near the rear. I figured maybe someone from the lab was working late. Sometimes they ran tests overnight. I started on the top floor like I always did. Wipe down waiting room chairs, clean the bathrooms, then mop the tile hallways. The whole building runs on motion sensors, so the lights come on when you walk through. Except that night, something strange happened. When I walked into the hallway near the pediatrician's office, the lights flickered on, then off, then on again. That had never happened before. I paused, assuming it was a faulty sensor. I waved my hand. The lights stayed steady. Weird, but I moved on. About an hour later, I was in the second floor break room taking a quick snack break. That's when I heard the ding of the elevator. Now that building only has one elevator, and it's slow as hell. It usually hums loudly when it's moving, and then makes a distinct ding when it opens. I froze. I hadn't called the elevator. I wasn't expecting anyone. I stepped into the hallway and peeked around the corner. The elevator door was wide open. No one inside. No one getting out. Just open. I walked over cautiously and checked the security log on the panel. The last call had been from the basement. That didn't sit right with me. I hadn't gone down there yet. That was my final stop every night. Just one small lab room, a hallway, and a couple of supply closets. I decided to finish the second floor and avoid the basement as long as possible. I figured maybe a lab tech had triggered the elevator. I tried to let it go. But just after midnight, I was mopping near the stairwell when I heard something echoing from the basement vents. At first I thought it was water running, but then it became clear. It was a voice. Software garbled, but definitely human. I turned off my Bluetooth headphones and leaned down. Marcus. My blood ran cold. I didn't imagine it. It said my name. I stood there, frozen, trying to make sense of what I'd heard. Maybe someone from the lab had seen me on the cameras. Maybe they were playing a joke. I tried to convince myself of that as I gathered my supplies and, against every instinct, headed down to the basement. The elevator was still sitting open on the second floor. I took the stairs instead. The basement hallway lights flicked on as I walked through, except for one. The motion light outside the diagnostic lab door didn't turn on. I waved my hand under it. Nothing. I reached for the doorknob and realized the door was already cracked open. I slowly pushed it inward, the hinges squeaking just slightly. The lab was empty, chairs tucked in, monitors off, the faint hum of the fridge in the corner. And then I saw the wall. Scratched into the drywall above the sink in long, uneven letters were the words, "I see you." My knees went weak. I backed out of the room, heart pounding in my ears, and turned to head up the stairs. But the lights behind me began flickering, all of them. One by one, the motion lights snapped off as if someone was walking right behind me, closing the distance. I didn't look back. I ran. By the time I reached the first floor, I was gasping. I grabbed my phone to call my supervisor, but before I could even hit call, I got a notification. A text from an unknown number. It said, "Why are you leaving early, Marcus?" That was it. I grabbed my stuff and left everything else behind. The next morning, I told my supervisor I was quitting that site. I didn't give him a reason. He didn't ask. Weeks later, I talked to another cleaner who took over the same building. She told me she only lasted 2 shifts before requesting a transfer. She said the elevator kept opening on its own. And once, while mopping the lab, she found the words, "Stay longer," written in condensation on the inside of the fridge door. No one had touched it. I don't know what's in that building, if it's something supernatural or something much worse, but I've never taken another cleaning job since. And I never, ever stay in a building alone after midnight. If you're still listening, thanks for sticking with me. If you like these true horror stories and want more like them, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon. You never know when the next story will hit a little too close to home. Sleep well.